Okay, winter is coming, or to be real, autumn is coming. And in this time of the year, there is one piece of everyday carry that many people somewhat overlook. And this item is a flashlight. And today's video is all about the Wuben X4 and why I prefer the X2 Pro a little bit more. But before we start talking about these flashlights, let's talk about why I personally think every everyday carry should include a flashlight. I personally am a pet owner. I have a dog, he's called Woody, and when you're walking with your dog, especially at night or now coming into fall where the days are becoming shorter, even in dim sunset light, you sometimes need a flashlight. And I already see the comments. Many of you will kind of say, hey, you have a phone in your pocket, there is a flashlight. However, if you are a dog owner, you probably know the situations where you're kind of holding the leash and a fresh doggy bag in the other hand. Potentially, if your dog is as big as my dog, then there is the risk of him kind of pulling me slightly to the side while I want to pick up the business he has made on the ground. So with two hands basically being pretty much occupied, you don't want to hold the leash with your phone somewhat fiddling like this and then kind of trying to grab with the other hand the business on the ground with the fresh doggy bag, because there is very high risk of your phone being dropped on the ground accidentally. And then either you kind of shatter your screen, or if it's a very shitty situation, it falls into the business of your dog. And you don't want that. And obviously, you don't want to crack your screen. More importantly, the flashlight of a phone is okay, but it's definitely not bright enough if it is in fall. There is a lot of leaves on the ground and you kind of try to distinguish, okay, what is whatever you want to pick up or what is a leaf. So you need a little bit more power out of your flashlight. Those reasons combined, for me personally, make a flashlight very important. Now, you might say, I don't have a dog. Still, a flashlight can come in very handy when you are, for example, in a parking lot and you drop your keys. Yes, the flashlight on your phone can work, but having a proper flashlight is always better, illuminating the whole ground to find whatever you might potentially have dropped on the ground is really helpful. Then, being in a sketchy parking lot, you might get mugged. There is the potential that you get mugged, and having a flashlight can give you a couple of seconds to get away. Most of these flashlights that I always recommend in my everyday carry videos have enough power. More importantly, some of them have a strobe feature. This is a valid, in my humble opinion, a valid form of self-defense, because not all of us, I do Muay Thai, I do boxing, still I would rather run instead of getting into a fight. And if you are not trained, a knife or whatever kind of tool you might have, if you don't know how to wield it, then it's probably more dangerous to you, in my humble opinion. So having a flashlight, and my recommendation being, if you get in a shitty situation, to run away, having a flashlight to blind your potential threat is giving you enough seconds to get away, or not enough, at least a couple of seconds to kind of disorientate your attacker and then get away. If you get in a dangerous situation, give out your wallet, run away. Buy yourself a couple of seconds by disorientating that person. Don't get into a fight. Try not to fight. I know there are places in the world where they say, oh, I have a gun or whatever. We don't have that here in Germany. We even have rules that kind of not allow us to carry around knives. But again, if you don't know what to do with a knife, usually I would argue it's more dangerous to you than the attacker if you have a knife. That's just my opinion. So I would always rather recommend to run away. And that's just my opinion. Therefore, I think a flashlight is illegal and very valid secondary use as a defensive tool. Again, it will buy you just a couple of seconds, but sometimes these seconds can be enough in my humble opinion. So those were my reasons why every everyday carry should have a flashlight. Now we get to these two flashlights. This is the Wuben X2 Pro. It is banged up. You can clearly see that I have been using this for quite a while and I love this flashlight. It is very reliable. You can actually feed it with regular AA batteries, but you have lithium batteries here. You can charge it via USB-A. And the main light in the front has different LEDs. So depending on where you set the strength level, it kind of also switches the LEDs and changes somewhat the beam pattern, which I do like a lot. Then you have a secondary mode where you kind of have this smaller LED when you clip it like vertically. Then you also have a RGB kind of LED for different light patterns. So you could use this as a bike light, put this on the back of your backpack and then have a red light here. So this is a very versatile light, and it also has a little tactile kind of switch, toggle switch, to choose between either button lock, the front LED or the secondary LED, which I like a lot to kind of prevent this light from accidentally switching on in your pocket. Entering this new light from Wuben, the X4. This has a pretty much similar form factor, albeit a little bit more longish and slightly more narrow, and having a couple of different features. Let's go over the features first before I go into what I don't like about it and why I rather take the X2 Pro. So just like the X2 Pro, this has a front element with a couple of different LEDs. However, my version, and I'm not sure, this is a pre-production unit, when you switch the light intensity, it doesn't change the light beam pattern. It always stays in this very concentrated beam. And I think that is on purpose, because instead of the secondary light like on the X2 Pro, you have like a light panel, a light strip, which gives you a wider beam and is more of a, let's say, let's illuminate a whole tent or a whole work area if you're, I don't know, working on your car and you want to illuminate a whole area. And I believe that is the reason why the front element only has like a narrow beam pattern. So this light strip on the side also has a different colored LED to kind of go through some of the RGB light modes. So red, green, yellow, but also blue and some pinkish hue. So that is really cool. So you can also use this somewhat as a bike light. Moreover, you do have a toggle switch here, which also kind of acts as the cover for the USB-C charging port, but also it toggles between the 3 different modes. So on the X2 Pro, you only have button lock and 2 modes. On this, you have button lock and 3 different modes. So you toggle between the light strip, the main light at the front, but then you can also go to so-called moonlight version. So it kind of activates the front light, but in a very dim moonlight version to kind of preserve some of the battery life whilst still giving you some light, but also is, for example, if you are camping, for example, and there is basically no light and you only want to somewhat illuminate a little bit without kind of blinding you completely, because yeah, if there is no light, obviously your eyes are much more sensitive to any light, and having a moonlight option gives you the opportunity to illuminate whatever you want to see without kind of blinding you. And I do like that you have this kind of battery saving feature. The build quality, just like on the X2 Pro, which is really banged up, and I do like that it is banged up. I prefer having my EDC being a little bit more roughened up, having patina and showing everyone around me basically I am using this. And I have been carrying the X2 Pro in my pocket for many months, while this for a couple of weeks. And I do like the build quality, and it's actually a little bit better in my hands. And overall, I like the form factor a little bit better, especially because this does not only have, just like the X2 Pro, a magnetic tail, but also it has a tactical switch. Meaning if you go into your regular mode here, if you push the tail, you have like a tactical, how do you call it? Tactical actuation, tactical button. Oh, speaking of lights and battery powered one of my lights just went on, so don't mind that. But yeah, you have this tactical button, and if you push it, you see this, you have this self-defense mode. But this tactical button obviously only works when you have the tail switch to one of the 4 positions on this toggle switch. So if it's in button lock mode, obviously it doesn't work. If you push it all of the way in moonlight mode, you actually only activate the moonlight mode, but you don't have access to those strobe lights and those self-defense mechanisms. So you would need to push this toggle switch into the middle section of this whole toggle switch, which now brings me to why I don't really like this. This toggle switch isn't as, how can I say it, as useful as I would like it to be because of the 4 modes. It is very easy to kind of miss the mode that you want to. You always kind of in air quotes, I don't know if that's the right word, so I put it in air quotes, over switch the button. So you kind of want to get to the main mode, but you accidentally, because it's very lightly to kind of push, you go to the moonlight mode, and then you have only the light mode that you don't want. So you kind of have to go back. And this is very important. If you want to utilize this, as I mentioned, in this self-defense mode, and you think to yourself, okay, I put it into this middle part, put it into my hands just to be safe, go into the dark parking lot and have this right at hand. If you accidentally just slightly bump this switch into moonlight mode, then this tactical button going into strobe mode to kind of defend yourself is pretty much gone. And then you blind your attacker with the moonlight mode, which doesn't work at all. It's yeah. It's not that great. It doesn't work. So for me, the switch is way too light and it's way too easy, even if this would be a little bit harder to kind of move between the modes. Having the moonlight mode at the end of the switch, where you kind of, let's say you have it in button lock mode in your pocket and you think to yourself, oh no, there's an attacker running towards me. You obviously switch the button all the way because you are in the heat of the moment, and then you are not in the main mode but in the moonlight mode, and then you hit the tactical switch and then you basically just give your attacker some light instead of blinding your attacker, you know? And I think that is stupid. So maybe the solution would have been to make this toggle switch a little bit more difficult to operate, giving it a little bit more friction, and more importantly, instead of going from button lock to side light to main light to moonlight, go from side light to moonlight to main light. So having the main light operation at the end of the switch, that would have been my personal solution for this. Then what I also don't like, the switch, the rotary switch of the intensity of the light compared to the Wuben X2, which is very easy to kind of scroll up and down. It is a little bit more recessed on the X4, which makes it a little bit more difficult to kind of dial in the intensity that you want. And considering it is a very narrow beam pattern, I feel like it's not that important to dial in. So yeah, you could argue, yeah, it's recessed, it's not as easy to get to and to dial in your light intensity because you don't need to. But yeah, I'm a little bit torn. I would rather have the light pattern and the switches from this than this. Okay, now I was really nitpicking on this. Again, the build quality is great. I like this light strip. I like the overall construction of this Wuben flashlight. However, I don't like the way I am using this. I don't like this toggle switch, the button. Honestly, I like the button on the X2 Pro much more. I kind of would have loved if I mashed these two together. I want the light strip on the X2 Pro, but keep everything else on the X2 Pro as is. Maybe also have like the tactical switch. I know you can kind of buy this as a secondary option if I'm not completely mistaken, but I would have loved that the X2 Pro had this kind of tactical switch in here already. If it would be me, I would highly recommend to get the Wuben X2 Pro as your everyday carry what the hell is going on? Flashlight, as your everyday carry flashlight. Get the X2 Pro, but I would say if you can live with the toggle switch of the X4, yeah, it's a cool light, especially with the bright light strip here, because it will illuminate a work area much better. This would be a perfect light actually in your car. So if you kind of break down on the side of the road and have to change the tires or whatever, this would be great because the light strip would illuminate a bigger area to kind of work on your car. So this is great. Keep it in your car, but as an everyday carry light, I would rather go with the Wuben X2 Pro. And if you consider getting any of these two items, check out the links below. Those are affiliate links. With those, you won't pay more, but you will support this channel with a small kickback of that sale. And if you do so, thank you very much. All right. So I would like to know from you, A, which of these two lights are you considering? Do you have them already? What do you think about them? Or let me know, which flashlight do you utilize in your everyday carry? Or are you saying, well, I don't care about flashlights. I'm living on the edge. I'm using my phone to illuminate whatever I'm looking for, even if it might be some piece of poo on the ground. I'm using my $1,500 iPhone Pro to find whatever is on the ground. Let me know in the comment section below. And if you want to see my last everyday carry, check out the video up here. YouTube thinks that you like the video down here. And don't forget to like, potentially hype the video, and to subscribe to this channel, helping me to get to 70,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Yes, maybe, no? Click here. I see you in the next video. Thank you very much.